Previously on Jonna. After her first real contracts in Manshire, Jonna began to understand that her true strength was not only in electromancy, but in how she faced her own mind. At Raven Hill, her next contract, a shift began to appear in every battle. Jonna noticed her magic growing stronger, simply because she was changing how she handled emotion in combat. Fear, doubt, and pressure stopped being obstacles and started becoming part of her fighting rhythm. Later, in the Chapel of the Guiding Star, that transformation was forced into reality. Surrounded by unholy pressure, she stopped resisting it blindly and instead shaped it, releasing it as lightning. Emotion and magic became one system of control. Verren and Darrel became steady pillars in her journey. Around the campfire, between contracts, Jonna began to understand that growth is not received, it is built. And when injustice appeared again in the form of a thief, she acted without hesitation. The storm inside her was no longer chaos. It was learning to obey. Jonna sat beside her two pillars of support, Verren and Darrel. Together they discussed their next steps. For now, every contract Manshire could offer had already been completed. The roads ahead were open, but that created a different kind of problem. Jonna did not know how to handle uncertainty like this. For the first time in years, no one was giving her direct orders, only choice. And that frightened her more than she expected. Her companions noticed it immediately. So before deciding where to go next, the three agreed to return to Manshire and gather supplies for a long expedition. Between uncertainty and hesitation, Jonna finally stopped overthinking for a moment and followed the instincts of her companions. If she could not yet create the first step alone, then perhaps the initiative of her friends could act like an electric impulse, awakening new ideas inside her mind. Jonna's trauma still lingered beneath the surface. Whenever something unexpected appeared or situations strongly connected to her past, controlling her thoughts became difficult again. And even when she managed to stabilize herself, it was never complete. Sometimes the pressure still clouded her mind, preventing her from thinking clearly. But with Verren and Darrel beside her giving her confidence, that mental fog seemed slightly weaker. Their presence grounded her. And the result of that small clarity was now marked across the map itself, a path of exploration. A journey into unknown regions that would test how far Jonna could travel without allowing her own mind to cloud her judgment and prevent her from making the right decisions. Little by little, Jonna was beginning to regulate herself emotionally. Each battle reminded her that she could handle this, and that those emotions needed to be controlled in any situation, not avoided. She took a brief rest, quickly cooking something over a small campfire she had set up. Then she found it. A cave. She knew what that meant. It was not a place built for mages. Narrow spaces, fast creatures, enemies with an advantage in the dark. The cave did not take long to shift. Silence turned into pressure. Yellow eyes appeared in the dark, and when the first wolf bared its teeth, Jonna reacted. Lightning cut through the space, fast but unrefined, born from surprise more than control. The pack did not rush blindly. It closed in with intent, tightening the space around her, forcing her into a rhythm she did not choose. Jonna felt it immediately. This could not be answered with hesitation. Each breath became focus. Her lightning sharpened as her mind stopped resisting and started directing. The pack demanded everything she had, so she stopped trying to calm the storm and let it guide her hand. It stayed hidden in the darkness, waiting. For the moment, Jonna lowered her guard and believed the cave had finally gone silent. And the instant that thought crossed her mind, it attacked. Jonna's mind had nearly been overwhelmed by the pressure the pack created. So when the last wolf finally fell, the relief felt almost unreal. Her thoughts stabilized, her breathing slowed. For the first time since entering the cave, there was nothing left to control, at least for a moment. Because if this journey would teach her anything, it was that danger did not always come in numbers. Sometimes a single creature appearing at the right moment could be far more dangerous than an entire pack. The final encounter came in the form of a pair of starving wolves. Jonna managed to control the situation and survive, but this time it was far from easy. By the time she finally emerged from the cave, night had already swallowed the roads of Aldor. Jonna needed rest, not only for her body, but for her mind. The exhaustion was impossible to ignore now. But the only refuge she managed to find in the darkness was not a peaceful camp. It belonged to aggressive bandits. And once Jonna made sure no bandit remained standing, she finally allowed herself to rest. When morning arrived, she decided to begin the return journey, though not by the same road she had taken before. Instead, she chose to visit certain places along the way. One of them carried a name Verren almost never spoke aloud: the Abbey of the Holy Revelation. The place where everything for him had once begun. Curiosity pulled at Jonna's mind. After everything they had traveled through together, she wanted to see that place with her own eyes, to understand at least a fragment of what her companion had endured there. The visit itself was quiet, almost light compared to the dangers of the road. But Jonna's eyes captured every detail with unusual attention, as if she were trying to read the memories hidden between the stone walls themselves. A warm feeling settled in Jonna's chest as she returned to the camp. A quiet thought passed through her mind. It feels like coming home, doesn't it? The camp had become her first real home. Verren and Darrel, no longer just companions, felt closer to something like family. What began as necessity had slowly turned into connection. Every step they took together felt shared now, as if the journey itself belonged to all of them. That thought softened something in Jonna. It stayed with her as she moved through the small tasks of camp life, preparing, organizing, planning. The next destination was Osbrook. They needed supplies, grain for the chickens and feed for the carrier pigeons, things that could only be bought in quantity there. But the journey was no longer driven by a single purpose. Gold was still necessary. Contracts were gone for now. So what remained was exploration, and whatever opportunities the road could offer. The air felt different, heavier in a way she could not fully explain. No longer unfamiliar, but still uncomfortable. For a moment, her body reacted on instinct, that old tension rising again. But it did not take her over. She breathed through it. A small difference, but enough. What waited inside was no easier than before. It could even be worse. But this time, Jonna had something she did not have before: experience. Not comfort, not certainty, only familiarity with pressure. Fear was still there, so was tension. But they no longer fragmented her mind the way they once did. She moved forward with a clearer head, steadying herself as the cave began to reveal its true nature. Her magic now showed far greater precision, and her decisions felt different. Not because the enemies had become weaker, but because she was no longer fighting them from the same mental state. Each movement carried intent instead of hesitation. Each spell landed closer to what she actually meant to do, even under pressure. Not overpowering the situation through strength alone, but surpassing it through mental adjustment. The enemies hadn't changed. She had. After successfully overcoming the last cave, Jonna could hardly believe how far she had come. Only days ago, she would not have dared to explore this far alone. It had been her companions who gave her the first push into uncertainty. But the further she moved from camp, the more the world demanded from her. Sudden ambushes that felt like mental shocks. Caves turning into narrow darkness where enemies blended with the environment. Moments where survival meant moving, eating, resting, without stopping. At the time, she did not fully realize what was happening, but it was shaping her, a different version of herself, one less fragmented by fear, less slowed by doubt, more capable of acting under pressure. And as her mind learned to hold itself together, her magic evolved with it. Electromancy was no longer just something she used. It was beginning to mirror how she felt and how she chose to control it. Before returning to Manshire, their objectives slowly began to fall into place. The journey moved through several stops: Crom's Brewery, the inn in Osbrook, and the mill near the outskirts of town. Each location served a purpose. Gold had to be gathered, supplies secured, grain for the birds purchased in quantity. Manshire offered the chance to improve the camp significantly, but the expedition had another layer beneath it. Verren needed resources of his own. Gold to establish agreements and political arrangements with local governors, shaping future contracts into something more stable and favorable. That was the objective on paper, but not the full reality anymore. Jonna's mind had already changed through everything she had endured, and the bond between the members of the caravan had changed with it. What started as a shared necessity had become something more coordinated, more connected. Not just a journey for resources, but a journey they were beginning to take together. The camp seemed ready to celebrate everything they had accomplished. Jonna brought a few well-earned jars of beer back with her, and it felt like everyone shared the same idea. Ease the tension. Breathe for a moment. Let the road wait outside the firelight. Verren and Darrel were already there, waiting by the flames, ready to talk and drink like they always did when the night finally allowed it. For once, the weight of the journey felt lighter. Almost. It seemed Jonna may have gone a little overboard. But just as the night began to settle into something warm and familiar, a notification broke through it. Jonna was summoned by the governor. Something serious was happening outside Manshire. Several mercenaries had already been sent to investigate, even on horseback, and none of them returned. The reports pointed toward Signal Tower, but nothing was confirmed. No one knew what was truly waiting there. Only fragments, rumors, conflicting accounts with no clear truth. Her companions noticed it the moment Jonna returned. That shift in her gaze. When something touched her sense of morality, the way she moved through the world changed completely. It wasn't hesitation anymore. It was direction. Without needing many words, they all understood. And just like that, they got to work. The special contract of Manshire was about to begin, marking the start of a journey that would become something far greater than any of them could yet see. A turning point. But that is where this chapter ends, because even journeys like this need rest before they continue, and so do those who follow them. We'll see what awaits next time. Jonna will be waiting, more than ever.